Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to Morbid early and ad-free. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
You're listening to a Morbid Network podcast.
Redacted, Declassified Mysteries is a new podcast hosted by me, Luke LaManna. Each week, I dive into the hidden truths behind the world's most powerful institutions, from covert government experiments to bizarre assassination attempts. Follow Redacted on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, weirdos, I'm Ash.
And I'm Elena.
And this is Morbid.
It still is.
Never gonna change.
Always will be.
Morbid.
Forever and always.
XOXO Morbid girls.
Till the end of the world.
I hope. Yeah, no, we would be like very old.
Yeah.
I hope anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so.
These days I'm like, maybe not. But
Maybe, who knows? But you know what? We're going to be here for a while.
I love when I don't know what to say. I just go, That's my favorite thing to do.
I love it personally. So this episode is actually the sequel, if you will, to the first Sunset Strip Slayer episode. It was supposed to come out a little earlier, but this week, I'm terribly sorry. It was a week.
Yeah.
It was my youngest birthday, and then the twins started kindergarten, which is
Emotions
galore. Yes.
Daniel Tiger K-Pops, did you see them?
Yeah.
Emotions.
Like emotions that I was not ready to like have or deal with or confront. So It just like got us a little behind on everything. So I apologize. Because we are trying to get on like a stricter schedule because I think you guys deserve that and we want to give it to you.
Listen, here's the deal. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to put out episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays.
Because here's our thoughts.
Here's our Crime Countdown on Mondays.
Yes.
Tuesday just feels like a fun day to get
It feels like a good like beginning of the week, but not too beginning of the week.
It does. Then it gives us time to get our together on Wednesday and Thursday, a little more research time up in there. And then we were going to give it to you on Thursday, but then that would be too much time in between episodes from Thursday to Tuesday.
Or Saturday.
Well, too much time. So
it's the same. You're right. It's the same because we were thinking if we did Thursday, then you'd have to wait all the way till Tuesday for the next one. But if we did Saturday, you're waiting too long between Tuesday and Saturday.
Exactly.
So we figured Friday was a nice happy medium. People are still at work.
And then on Sunday, you get Scream.
Exactly. So we're trying to make it work. We're going to get it down, I promise.
I just cracked my neck and it was like a lot louder than I expected. I don't know if you heard that.
Because, like 16 years into this podcast, we're going to get on a schedule.
Well, the girls started school, so that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, guys, for real, I'm still like not even sure how to handle it.
We look at each other throughout the day. Like the first day, I looked at Elena and I go, I feel like I should have played with them more. And she goes, I was just saying that.
And I'm sure, I don't know if like parents agree with, maybe I'm crazy.
Sorry,
hopefully I'm not.
My microphone.
But John and I were literally like, I just want to play a game with them.
Yeah,
like I just want to
memory.
I want to do a puzzle. Can we play memory?
Games, matching games.
Can we play with your Frozen Barbies? Because
do you want to watch Bluey?
I should have done it more. I didn't do it enough, and now I can't.
And then they get home at a certain time, and I'm like, okay, I have to spend an hour with them before I leave, or else like I'm not going to feel like I'm a good aunt. Like,
but the upside of all that crazy emotions is that it is allowing us to get a little more on a schedule, which I did not anticipate. So hopefully that will be happening soon. We're going to make it happen, I promise.
Because we love you. We just want to make you happy.
We want to give you guys deserve it. You've been amazing.
You guys are incredible.
You guys have hung around. You've dealt with our erratic schedule for years.
You've dealt with us.
You've dealt with us.
So,
and we appreciate you so much. We just like always want you to know that. So we feel really lucky that we get to do this every day.
So
I've been thinking about that lately.
Just like how lucky we are.
I feel very lucky.
Yeah.
And I'm just like very appreciative of you guys. So
yeah.
So thanks so much.
No, sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, this is still happening.
Yeah,
like, thank you.
I'm just very appreciative, and I feel like we should let you know every once in a while. So,
but with all that hunky dory stuff, let's bring it way down.
You know, now that I've just like gooed all over you with happiness, you know, that sounded kind of dirty, but not.
It really didn't.
It just
sounded like you were a monster.
We're gonna go into part 2 of Doug Clark and Carol Bundy, the Sunset Strip Slayers, the Sunset Strip Killers.
The Sunset Strip Slayers, first of all, is a tongue twister.
The idiots.
And second of all, is so stupid. Why do we give them these names?
They always get them.
Why don't we call them the Sunset Dingai?
Why don't we call
Dinguses, plural.
Why don't we call them gross? Because that's what they are. They are gross. These two. And when we left you last time, because I know it's been a couple of days, we left you with the discovery of Jack Murray's dead, headless corpse in a van that he used to carry on his affairs with Carol and other women.
Yeah.
He was found headless, you know?
Yeah.
Just missing his head.
The fact that they straight up decapitated people.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's what kind of... Like, all of these people are bad, you know, like everybody's bad.
Yeah, it's just like different degrees.
And like the Hillside Stranglers, like holy
Horrific.
hell. But then when you get to like decapitation, it just like...
It's a whole extra layer to the evil onion.
Because killing and like, you know, hurting people for sport and just for thrill and stuff is so inhuman to most of us anyway.
Right.
But something about removing somebody's head is just a whole different galaxy.
Because it's like a different level of dehumanizing
someone. Because it's like what, you know, it's an identifying someone. It's like all their features are on their head, you know? And I don't know, it's just weird. It's
just terrifying.
So, yeah, Jack was found dead in his van. Police had received the call to come check out the van when people were starting to smell something really awful emanating from inside of it. Because it had been there for about 4 or 5 days in the dead of summer in California. It was in August. So,
I leave like, you know, I did once leave fish tacos in my car, which is
sure did.
Real. Like I'll never live it down, so I might as well
she
tell
never
all
will.
of you.
She never will.
Like my family will never let me live it down. I was also like 19 and an idiot.
I was the most horrified.
Yeah, it's fucking disgusting, but like I'm trash, so I don't know what to tell you. Overnight,
We love you anyway.
Only one night, and I got in the car the next day. I can't even explain to you the scent.
Yeah, because think about how hot a car gets.
Well, that's exactly what I mean.
People die from being left inside of a car. Like that inside of a car gets outrageously hot.
Yes.
Never mind in the dead of summer.
In like California.
And for 5 days.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Oh, man.
I mean, and at this point, I mean, very obviously by what she has just done, Carol is losing it. Carol's losing it. She's been involved in these, like, you know, she was involved in, like, covering things up, disposing of things. She got the guns for him, like... There's just a lot going on. She's starting to unravel at the seams, and her coworkers are starting to see it, as well as everyone else around her.
Yeah.
She's just starting to be off. You can tell she's just a mess. What I did find out, because I know I was wondering and I couldn't find anything about it, and I think you had asked about it last time, like, where are her children? Because she has
where
two
are her
sons.
children?
And this whole time I'm like, where are they?
Yeah, because she literally has a decapitated head in her
And she's
home.
like going to this bar every night, and I'm like, where are your and again, I don't know how old they were, because you literally can't find that, which I'm kind of glad. But I was like, what's going on here? I did find out that her 2 sons were staying with her mother-in-law in another state for like months at a time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So at least that clears that up, that I think, because this didn't take too long to happen, this whole spree. So I think for the bulk of it, they were
away.
gone.
Well, at
like
least
when, you know, when Exie Wilson's head was found on the counter in the kitchen, when Carol walked in, they were gone. I
just can't imagine like finding that out, that is what your mom was doing. Like, that must be heartbreaking.
I can't even fathom it.
Right.
I really can't. And it's like so many people, like I was reading, you know, some of the books I was reading about this, some of the authors were like just like marinating in the idea that like all of these people, all their families had to deal with like so many levels of like, even Jack Murray's family.
Yeah.
His kids had to deal with like finding out all of his secrets and like,
and I'm sure even his wife was already going through the grief of like, he's cheating on me with all these women. And then this happens. And that's just obviously different kind of grief.
Yeah, there's so many layers of awful to this in every direction.
Hurt.
Yeah, it's just every direction you look, it's just like in this case.
This is a very tragic
I couldn't
case.
wait to be done with this case. Like, I'm going to see you later, goodbye after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, so Carol was really having a time at this point. She had called her ex-husband at this point. If you remember Richard Geiss.
He was the nice one.
He was the nice one. And she had told him, you know, I have something to tell you. And I'm starting to stress out. And he's like, what is going on?
Right.
And she was like, Doug's a serial killer.
Oh.
Doug is the Sunset Strip Slayer.
Oh.
And I'm very afraid.
And Richard's like, me
And he
as
was
well.
like, what, you got to get out of there. Like, he was
Right.
literally like, you got to get out of there. Well, she hung up the phone.
I'd also be like, don't implicate me in this now that I know that.
Well, and
like,
then, so he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do here?
Call the police.
So then she calls him back and she's like, no, I was just joking. Like, don't worry about it. I was joking. That was just like, I'm Carol.
lol.
Like, woohoo,
Yeah.
funny joke. And Richard said, like, I didn't know if I should believe her or not. Like, I don't know. Because he was like, remember, everyone involved in this is a pathological liar.
Right.
So it's like Carol, Doug, Jack, everybody. They're all pathological liars. You can't, who knows
Can't
what
trust
is true
him as
and
far
what
as you
isn't.
can throw him.
And it's like, so he just didn't know. He was like, it could have been true. It could have been false. I had no idea what to do. So he just didn't do anything. Because what is he supposed to do?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could call the police.
I was going to say, probably call the police.
But it's a weird situation, I suppose.
But then you're going to call the police, and especially the LAPD at this time, you're going to be like, hey, my ex just said that her new bae is the Sunset Strip killer. Then she said, JK, LOL. Just wanted to let you guys know.
Just, do you guys want to do anything with that? They'd be like, absolutely not. We don't want to do anything with that.
They'd be like, she said JK.
In a quiet suburb, a community is shattered by the death of a beloved wife and mother. But this tragic loss of life quickly turns into something even darker. Her husband had tried to hire a hitman on the dark web to kill her. And she wasn't the only target. Because buried in the depths of the internet is the kill list, a cache of chilling documents containing names, photos, addresses, and specific instructions for people's murders. This podcast is the true story of how I ended up in a race against time to warn those whose lives were in danger. And it turns out, convincing a total stranger someone wants them dead is not easy. Follow Kill List on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Kill List and more Exhibit C true crime shows like Morbid, early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus. Check out Exhibit C in the Wondery app for all your true crime listening.
Hotshot Australian attorney Nicola Gaba was born into legal royalty. Her specialty? Representing some of the city's most infamous gangland criminals. However, while Nicola held the underworld's darkest secrets, the most dangerous secret was her own.
She's going to all the major groups within Melbourne's underworld, and she's informing on them all.
I'm Marcia Clark, host of the new podcast Informants Lawyer X. In my long career in criminal justice as a prosecutor and defense attorney, I've seen some crazy cases, and this one belongs right at the top of the list.
She was addicted to the game she had created. She just didn't know how to stop.
Now, through dramatic interviews and access, I'll reveal the truth behind one of the world's most shocking legal scandals. Listen to Informants Lawyer X exclusively on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and listen to more Exhibit C true crime shows early and ad-free right now.
Because remember, literally, because remember, during the Hillside Strangler case, when Jan was calling them up,
they
being
were like,
hey,
stop calling
I
us.
literally just witnessed somebody get they tried to shove this girl into a car. I saved her life.
They were like, you're crazy.
Here's exactly what they look like, down to the acne scars on his neck. And they were like, go home.
Yeah.
Go home,
literally.
lady.
Like
Holy
direct quote.
what-
Well, and even this one, like, didn't they tell somebody, like, I don't know what to tell you? Like,
Yeah.
Or they didn't even put two and two together about the notebooks
like Mindy
and
Cohen
everything?
is calling and she's like, hey, so I met those two girls. I can tell you everything about them.
Right.
A couple minutes ago, I got this really scary call from a guy who said he was Detective Clark. And he said he knows everything about it. And he also said he's going to come kill me. And they were
Right.
like, that's a prank. Deal with it. Bye.
Deal with
like,
it.
okay.
Just deal with it.
Okay. So I think Richard was probably like, okay, I'm just going to stay over here.
Yeah. Stay in my lane.
But before Jack Murray was found murdered in his van, she was still trying to see him at the bar. She was still like really into Jack, still trying to, even though she's with Doug, because none of these people are like, these aren't
monogamous.
like real monogamous relationships or anything. They are just like using each other for whatever they can use each other for. So she had been seeing him at the bar that he sang at more and more. She's trying to entice him to come back into her life.
I just keep picturing Toby Keith's as this bar.
I see. I've never been to that one.
Neither have I. I've only walked by it.
I was going to say, I was like, I can see.
You think I'm chilling in Toby Keith's?
I was like, here I am saying I can happily say I've never been in that
I've
bar.
only just walked by it, but my mom used to frequent that bar. So,
yep, that is true. And you know what? I think it's like every country bar.
Yeah.
That you can, Nashville, I feel like that's every single country bar I can picture. You know? Too. Now, after getting like soused one night at the bar, she was like, I got to tell you something, Jack. And he's like, what? And she's like, Doug murders workers. That's something he does, and I have helped him clean and dispose of some of the evidence. One of the things I have done, she was like, remember that victim, Exie Wilson? I helped him get rid of that head.
I also put makeup on it and did the hair on the head.
Well, and she was like, what do you think?
What did Jack say?
What are your thoughts?
Jack probably just like said something dickish.
Oh no, Jack was like horrified, and he was like, it was like, because Jack was like not a good human being at all,
but not a murderer,
but not that we know of. So it's like, I think that was that might have been his line. I think I didn't know where his line was, but there it was. And so she was shocked. She thought he was going to be like very into
be there for me, Jack,
and like be into it. And he was like, yeah, I might call the police on Doug. Like, he was like, I might report that.
See, here's the thing. You don't tell his bae that. You just say, wowee, I don't want to know anything about that. Bartender, make it stronger. Yeah. And then you go home and quietly call the police.
Exactly. I would have literally been like, oh, it's so loud in here. I literally didn't hear a thing you said. Did you say Doug was a great guy?
Check,
awesome.
please.
Can I have here we go, get my beer. Okay, bye.
Yep.
Like, and then
okay,
later you call the police.
Yeah, quietly,
and you say it.
Quietly.
But he was like, I'm not scared of you. I'm going to call the police. Like, sorry about it. I'm going to get him in jail.
Oh, man.
So she was furious.
Of course.
And so she decided he's got to go.
Oh. So she's furious at him for like so many
She's furious
reasons.
at him for a million reasons. But that was the cap. So August 5th, she lured him out to his van with the promise. Now, she had lured him out there with the promise of having sex with her, and also the promise that if he did this, that she would bring the 11-year-old. Remember Jessica, that is not her name, but I'm just not using her real name. 11-year-old the next time, and that he could have the 11-year-old.
What?
So
I don't want to.
It's just all bad. It's just all bad. So what she said was she started by giving him a massage in the van while he was he had his pants down.
Stop.
While he was unaware, she shot him in the head twice.
Whoa.
And he still wasn't dead. So she pulled out a knife and stabbed him 9 times.
Whoa.
She also slashed and stabbed him in the buttocks and genitals. And initially she was just going to leave him there after this like frenzied killing that she did.
So this is by herself. Doug's not even there.
Totally by herself, according to her story.
Okay.
But she did realize that there were now 2 bullets in his brain that could be traced back to her and Doug. Because they were now the 25 caliber bullets from one of the 2 Raven guns. One of them was like chrome plated. One of them was nickel plated.
You had said that.
That's how they told them apart. But she was like, this is going to be traced back to us. So she's like, I got to do something about this. So she sawed off his head with a boning knife.
So now not only has Doug done this, she's done this. These 2 evil-ass people who found each other sawed off heads.
Someone. But here's the interesting thing. Now, the thing with this case, there's a lot of different feelings about it because Doug, to this day, as we'll see, maintains that he is a pile, but he has not done this stuff. And what he said and what he did through the whole trial was that it was Jack and Carol who did all this.
Interesting.
And that Carol turned on Jack. But when you turn it around, there's evidence that can point to some of that or some of them, and there's evidence that can point right to Doug.
So I wonder, maybe if they were just all doing this together.
Well, there's also that. There's people who think that the 3 of them were doing this together and that they had to nix one of them, and Jack was the one who, exactly. So there's also this thing where a forensic pathologist said when he looked at the Exie Wilson decapitation and the Jack Murray decapitation, the way that it was done seemed like it was done by the same person.
Interesting.
Which is interesting because they said it was like a very Carol. Like like jagged, kind
Right.
of the same, which on the other note,
That could
you
just
could
be
say
the
that
tool.
could be someone who has never cut someone's head off before. Like, you know, it's just,
or
there's
just
a lot.
even the tool that they used.
Exactly. Maybe they're using the same boning knife, you know? So there's so many things in here. And as we'll see, a lot of people aren't around to talk about it anymore.
Right.
And that's very
A bummer.
frustrating. But it's interesting. It's definitely, there's a lot of very strong feelings either way. I don't know. I can safely say I don't know.
You really don't have
I have
any?
no idea.
Do you lean toward anything?
I know Doug Clark is a murderer.
Yeah, of course.
I know that.
You
but
just
I
know it in your bones.
But I'm like, was anyone else involved? I don't know. I feel like my feelings, if I had to pick one, is that it's Doug and Carol.
Okay.
That's it. But like sometimes you can be like, ooh, maybe. A little
Okay.
bit, I guess. Now, after she cut off Jack's head, she put it in a grocery bag and she left with it in the car. Put the
Okay.
grocery bag on the passenger side seat, drove off.
What a life, dude.
Right?
Like,
You just get in a car with a severed head that you have just liberated
wow.
from someone's body.
Wow.
Yeah, that's next level.
You
evil.
just
next
drive,
level.
You drive a vehicle after that.
Yeah.
How do you drive a vehicle after killing a man?
You have to
cutting
be-
off his head, and then his head is sitting right next to you. You just must have no feelings.
Yeah, there has to be nothing there.
that is so bananas to me.
Well, she drove to the apartment that she was sharing with Doug. Doug actually was with his another girlfriend.
Also,
when
wasn't
she
Jack
called
her
him.
landlord at this apartment still?
No, this was after he had kicked. Remember, Jeanette had made him kick.
Oh yeah.
Kick
But I
her
thought
out.
he set her up in like a different apartment.
He did, but he wasn't the
his.
landlord.
Okay,
he just
okay.
helped her get it.
I'm looking at the tiny
like, I'm just
details
trying to
here.
figure it
You're
out.
like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. But I appreciate the thought. But so Doug had another girlfriend in the apartment when this happened. And
Sleeping
this
on the
is
couch again.
interesting. I read in a couple of places that she called Doug on the way to the apartment and told him like excitedly, was like hysterically excited what she had just done. And he was like, okay, you need to get here right now and we need to figure this out. And then when she arrived there were paramedics there because his girlfriend had had a seizure.
Oh my gosh.
But what a lot of people think is that she heard the phone conversation.
Yeah, and had like
and something happened.
Yeah.
But obviously, this is in a few sources I saw. Interesting nonetheless.
That is
Either
weird.
way, he did have a girlfriend there the night that this
And
all went down.
paramedics were there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was so weird.
That's
but
crazy.
and when she called him, she was like, I did this for you, like to save you so you wouldn't go to jail. Like this is for you. And according to Doug, Carol wanted to put the head on a fence post to have somebody just find it. But that doesn't make sense to me. And again, remember, they're all pathological liars trying to save their own
Right.
asses. Doesn't make sense to me because the whole reason she removed the head in the first place, according
So it
to
wouldn't be
her,
traced back.
was so the bullets wouldn't be traced back to them. If they leave the head somewhere, they're leaving the bullets.
But why is she so worried about that now? Because they left Exy's head in the box out in the open. So I almost, part of me wants to believe Doug that she did want to do that because
I don't know. Because why did
bullets-
you? And then it's like maybe she just removed his head out of rage. Mm-hmm. You know, just like Doug did to Exy.
yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. Again, you
no
you don't know
matter
who to
which way
believe.
you look at it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No, and it's tough
which
either
is
way.
probably good to not, that it doesn't make sense to
Exactly. I don't want it to make sense.
us. Don't make it make sense.
No. But she says, you know, after they talked about it for a minute, they decided they were just going to throw it in the trash.
Okay.
So they said they pulled up to a trash can and threw it inside. It was never found.
So they didn't do that.
It was never found with the head.
They probably like threw it in a body of water or something.
That's the thing. So I'm like, where's the, because
Or maybe
the
buried it
pathologist
somewhere.
only had the neck portion to like look at to say that they were both removed by the same person.
Right.
But it's like, would the head have told a different story? I don't know.
Yeah. neither
Very
do I.
interesting. Now, when the police were called to the scene days later, they found Jack's body. They also found a bullet casing. She forgot to pick up one of the bullet casings.
See, that's another thing where I'm like, if you did that, then you obviously weren't
Yeah.
that worried about it because you know that happens if you're
Yeah.
shooting a gun all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
But maybe in like the frenzy of the moment again. So.
Exactly. Now, August 11th, the same day that Jack was found, Carol told her supervisor at the hospital, hey, I'm like stressed out. And she's just like in the break room.
I
And
forgot
she's
that
like,
she worked at a hospital.
yeah, she still works at a hospital and she's in the break room and she's like, oh, I'm just like really stressed out. And they're like, yeah, we can tell like you seem like you're like kind of unraveling. And she was like, yeah,
You're a
you know
little
what it
jumpy,
is?
Carol.
She was like, you know what it is? It's my boyfriend Doug. He's the Sunset Strip Slayer. So like it's stressing
hard to
me
sleep
out
at night.
And they were like,
Come again?
Excuse me, Carol? And she was like, yeah, like he murders people. Like my boyfriend murders people. You know that guy on the news that is like murdering workers? That's my boyfriend Doug. And it's just a little stressful.
Just a wee bit.
So they were like, okay. And a couple of nurses that were supervising were like, okay, cool. We're gonna be right back. So they just went and called the police and were like, hi, you need to get here right now.
Yeah.
And the police come and the entire hospital went on lockdown, or at least that floor went on lockdown.
Oh my gosh.
Somehow she was able to miss the police by scooting down another elevator as they came up.
Stop
And
this.
she changed out of her scrubs so she wouldn't be noticed walking out of the hospital. And she left and she went back to her apartment.
Again, we say it all the time. That is something you would see in a movie and you'd be
And
like,
be like,
there's
that
no
wouldn't
way
happen.
that would happen.
Happened.
Wow.
Happened.
Wow.
Happened. It's like so wild.
The happening.
The happening is right there. So she went back to her apartment and she just started gathering all the evidence for the police. So she got like bullets that Doug had kept that like he had told her like, oh, this one I shot Gina Moreno with, and like this one I did this. She found several pairs of underwear that he said belonged to victims, because a lot of them were found most of them were found without underwear. I think all of them were actually, because he did keep them. And she then called. She was like, okay, I've gathered all this up. So now she was like, you know what? I got to call the police stations back because they don't know that I'm here. So she called the police stations that were in the different jurisdictions that the bodies were found. And the only one she could get a hold of right away, I don't remember which one it was. It was like, it wasn't very like important. Noted in many of the sources. I saw like 2 different ones, so I don't want to pick one and just say it. One of them that she called and got through, she told the whole story. She was just like, hello.
It's me, Carol.
And they were like, oh. And of course at first, because they've heard from Carol before, and then they figured it was just a prank.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, well, why would you decide to like tell us this now? And she was like, well, I'm confessing now because I finally committed a murder of my own, on my own. And she said, Doug was really pissed about it. And she was like, I'm just upset. We've been fighting about it. And I'm just over the whole thing.
KK.
I'm just done with this. I thought it was going to make him happy. It didn't. Bum me out.
Imagine receiving this call.
That detective was probably like, is this fake? Like,
right?
This has to be fake, right?
Because she's just like, let me tell you everything.
Yeah. And the detective's trying to keep her on the line at this point. And he said, and so he was like, well, do you feel remorse for the killing that you did? And she said, according to this detective, the honest thing is, it's fun to kill people. And if I was allowed to run loose, I'd probably do it again. I have to say, I know it's going to sound sick. It's going to sound kind of psycho. And I really don't think that I'm a psycho, but it's kind of fun. It's like riding a roller coaster. Not the killing, not the action that someone died, because we did not kill them in a way that hurt them.
What?
Mm-hmm. It's like a roller coaster.
We did not kill them in a way that hurt them.
Because according to her, she's like, what? We shot them in the head. And I'm like, well, Jack, you stabbed 9 times.
Yeah.
After shooting him
And she's
in the
like,
head.
I don't think I'm a psycho.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a psycho.
I'm like, I think you have a lot of mental illness,
I think you need to talk to somebody like ASAP. But before the call was over, so the detective's like, yup. Mm-hmm. Like, oh,
he's like,
okay.
my pen died. Hang on a second.
Gotta go. Like 10 officers surrounded her home.
Yeah, I was waiting for that part.
And while they were there, so should they come in, they got her without incident. She was like ready to go, but she was like, wait, I have all this evidence. So she starts handing them like the bullets, the underwear. God. And she's like, wait, that filing cabinet, let me open it. And they were like, what's in that filing cabinet?
Yeah, like, maybe not.
And they were like, no, like, you can help me. Like, I'm giving you permission to, like, help me open this. This is in my house. Like, I will help you open it. So they opened it up, and she pulled out a file, and she gave it to them. And it was a bunch of photos of Doug with the 11-year-old Jessica.
Oh, God.
And she was like, boom, there it is.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
So that's the other thing. It's like the people who are like, because I've seen like sources where they're like, Doug didn't do this. And I'm like, I don't give a what Doug did. He did that.
And you're obviously saying explicit photographs.
Yes, explicit photographs.
Oh, that's so horrible. Like, and then it's like, Carol, you're sitting there taking them. You're disgusting.
Exactly.
Ugh.
They're all horrific monsters. And it's like, he's exactly where he needs to be.
Yeah.
But She confessed to it all. She said she killed Jack. She explained why she did it. She said it was after she had cleaned and helped Doug dispose of Exie Wilson's head that she had confided in Jack and that she got scared and had to get rid of him. So she just let it all out. Now, about Exie Wilson's murder, she said afterwards, quote, "We had a lot of fun with her head. Where I had my fun was with the makeup. I was making her over like a big Barbie doll."
Dude.
That's what she said. Yeah.
She is so mentally ill.
Yeah. So
my.
Now here's where things, so this case is wild because there's 3 Jane Does in this case that are attributed to Doug Clark.
That's really sad.
It is really sad. So the first one was found after they were arrested, and it was on August 26, 1980, and she's referred to as the Valencia Jane Doe because of where she was found.
Sure.
She was found by a highway worker who was looking after, like, around the water towers in the area. This was the murder that Doug had referred to at one point to Carol and called her water tower. She was discovered near the Sierra Highway in Antelope Valley, which I don't know where that is, but Californians, you do, I bet. When he stumbled upon the body, it was just like scattered bones. It was like very skeletal. There was also, like, he said it was like horrific. It was smelled of decomposition. There was like an oily substance, which means she was definitely decomposing there. There was also a clump of blonde hair found nearby.
Oh, that's awful.
She looked to be about 15 to 20 years old, but when they did reconstruct her face, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children did, they still haven't identified her. When you look at the reconstruction, she looks way more on the younger side of that scale. The 15 to 20. She looks 15.
Oh.
Yeah, she looks very, very young. They believe she had been dead 1 to 2 months before she was found. She's also labeled as Jane Doe 18 right now. The cause of death they found was a gunshot wound to the back of the head. The remains were only wearing like a red sweatshirt they could find. They didn't find any other clothing. There was that bullet in her skull was a .25 caliber bullet.
So that's why it's attributed.
Yeah. 2 days after they found that Jane Doe, they found another Jane Doe.
Wow.
Jane Doe 99. She was discovered in an embankment in Malibu in a very secluded area. She's known as Malibu Jane Doe. She was small, like 5'3", like very tiny build. She had blonde hair. She was estimated to be about 20 years old as well. She was nude with a black tank top and black skirt around her waist. There was a clump of her own hair beneath her, like blonde hair, and she had died of a gunshot wound to the head as well, and it was from a .25 caliber Raven. If you look them up, you can find them on the Doe Network, and it will give you, like, you know, the little, they didn't really have a lot of features that were distinguishing marks or anything with them because a lot of them had been dead for a long time, but they are fairly certain, you know, they're attributing these two and then one other one to Doug Clark and Carol Bundy, but they think at the end of the day they are attributing like 25 people to him.
Wow.
But the police they've never released why or who else, or
right.
I think they must be like actively still working on these. Sounds because
like
I want to know who else they're attributing to him and why, but it's interesting.
Right.
And especially because according to Carol, you know, she would talk to people and say, and she said on the stand that he told her he'd been murdering since he was 17.
Right.
And he had at least up to 50 people that he had murdered. So
maybe that is true.
It could be true. Again, everybody's just a liar in this case, so you don't know. So Doug is obviously brought in with her because she implicated him right away.
Yeah.
And Doug's interrogation was just him blaming Carol completely.
Oh, of course.
Like, Carol did it. He said he and Carol went together to troll for workers and had threesomes with workers and were involved in it all together. But he said, I was not involved in any murder. And he kept saying, like, you know, I just like, you know, don't kink shame me. I just like
oh,
and it's
yeah?
Like,
you were involved with an 11-year-old.
Well, and that's before they let him know that they had that. So then as soon as that got slapped down in front of him, he's like, yeah, what are you going to say? He clammed right up.
Right.
Because
was that Carol's fault too?
Yeah, exactly. Because they were like, what, is this like, don't kink shame me? Like pedophile? Right. And he's like, womp, and just clammed right up. Now, another woman came forward saying, I recognize him. That guy that you just arrested, because of course it was on the news.
Right.
So she comes forward and she says, wait, I have a story.
Oh my gosh.
Now, her name is Charlene, and she testified that, and this is from the court transcripts, she testified that around 10 p.m. April 27th, 1980, so the same year, she was on Sunset Boulevard. She said a man who she identified at trial as Doug Clark approached driving a blue station wagon and solicited an act of oral copulation. After she entered the car, defendant suddenly began stabbing her repeatedly in the back, neck, arms, chest, and stomach.
Oh my gosh.
In the ensuing struggle, Charlene grabbed the knife by the blade. The blade severed tendons in her hands, like severely hurt her hand. At one point, she said, "Mister, that's blood, you're hurting me." And he laughed at her and said, "I know."
What?
So she was finally able to like fight him off. Like she was fighting tooth and nail. And then she finally was able to open the car door and literally roll out of the car. And he just threw her shoes and purse at her and drove away.
Oh my gosh.
And she later identified him from a lineup and then pointed to him in court and was like, "That's the guy."
Wow.
Yeah. Now, Carol confirmed this. She said, "Oh yeah, after that, he came right back to the apartment. He was covered in blood and like a wild animal,
like super pissed,
just pissed, amped, like all of it." And she just helped him wash off, and she also put together a kill bag for him so it would make it easier with knives and cleaning supplies and rubber gloves and such, because we got to make this more efficient.
What?
Yep. He was charged with 6 counts of murder, 3 charges of misconduct with a minor, mutilation of human remains, attempted murder and mayhem on Charlene, and accessory after the fact for helping Carol dispose of Jack's head.
Boom.
They ended up making a deal with Carol. She had to testify for the prosecution.
Of course.
And she would get full immunity for testifying, but immunity in the sense that she would not get the death penalty.
Yeah.
She would only get life in prison.
Okay.
Which she just got to weigh it, I guess.
Right.
So she claimed as well that there was another murder. While they were talking to her, she was like, "Wait, I don't think you have this one on the register."
Jesus Christ.
They didn't know about this one. So it was the murder of a worker she claimed she only knew was named Kathy. This is our third Jane Doe.
Oh, wow.
Now, from the court transcript, again, it says, quote, "According to Bundy, she and defendant picked up a young blonde prostitute who called herself Kathy. Bundy first watched while Kathy orally copulated defendant. Then upon defendant's signal, Bundy gave him her chrome Raven pistol. Defendant shot Kathy in the head. Defendant and Bundy took the body, stripped it, and left it in an isolated area near Saugus." Now, I looked it up, and at first I was like, Malibu's only like an hour away. And at first I was like, oh my God, is this Malibu Jane Doe? It kind of seems like blonde, everything, it's the same. But no, they found this Jane Doe as well.
Oh my gosh.
Her remains were skeletal when she was found, but the Doe Network says that her distinguishing features, because they don't even have a reconstruction of her, like they have nothing. Her distinguishing features were she had a very high forehead. She also had a very slight build. As for dental, they said the lower right side molar was missing and the upper left side molar was missing, and she had a slight overbite.
Okay.
You can look it up on the Doe Network. She's Kathy from the Doug Clark, Carol Bundy case. Obviously, if anybody has information on any of these Jane Does, they're a great person to call in the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. But it's really sad because they said she looked to be about 17.
Oh my gosh.
And Carol also said that they weren't even sure that she was dead when they dumped her.
What, dude?
Yep.
Like, how are you that evil? You just don't care.
There's so much evil here. It's just like, it's wild. And this is also when she mentioned in the interrogation that they had an agreement they came up with that if Carol was in the car and she said, "Boy, am I having a blast," that meant that when they picked up a girl, that meant she wanted to kill her.
Yep. It's like, Moira and Ian, they
yes,
had a code
they
too.
all of these have, like Catherine Burney and David Burney, they had a code too. Like I have the munchies or something like that.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
of.
but I think Ian and Myra had one too.
I thought theirs was I have the munchies.
Yeah,
who knows? They're all up, and I don't want to remember.
Terrible. But the prosecution was actually, because at first, of course, Doug is like, I don't know what she's talking about. What are you talking about? The prosecution was able to later, during the trial, admit into evidence writings by Doug, where he described this murder and his involvement.
Wow.
He tried to have them tossed out as evidence because he said they weren't, like, collected properly or admitted legally or something, but
you wrote them, bro.
It was there. Now, there was also a piece of paper that was found in his wallet that also pointed to this obviously being a true story. It was just this random piece of paper, and he wrote down all these weird little notes on it. The first one said Mindy C, and then her telephone number. This was Mindy Cohen's actual telephone number.
Yep.
Then it says B Hills, not working. Beverly Hills, not working, I'm assuming. Friend of Cindy's, which Mindy was a friend of Cynthia, who people called Cindy.
Okay.
He did admit many times, he admitted during trial that he did hang out with Cynthia Chandler, one of the victims, a couple of times before.
Oh.
So I think that might be what he's referring to. Friend of Cindy's is Mindy.
Right.
He wrote pretty. And then on the back of the note, it says Cindy, telephone number, room bottom left. And this was someone not identified, but the number was connected to the Palm Motel on Sunset Boulevard, where workers were known to work and hang out. So it could have been that. He then wrote blonde hooker 30. And then at the bottom, he wrote Kathy 2. Kathy.
Yep.
So people were like, boom,
There's
there
Jane
it
Doe
is.
number 3.
Now, after searching his apartment, they were able to go, like, finally getting to, like, actually search the apartment.
Right, like
they
with
were
a warrant.
Yeah, they were finally able to get through that filing cabinet because there was more stuff in there.
Oh, of course.
And yeah.
You don't just put that in with
No,
your
it's not
tax
it.
returns.
Exactly. Now, in it was a newspaper that was opened up to a specific page, and it was an article that was talking about the recovery of the box containing Exie Wilson's head. There was also a ton of porn in, like, all forms. There was even some that was dealing with necrophilia and involving severed heads and severed body parts. Yeah. So he was definitely into some, like, really scary shit. And then all the photos of him with an 11-year-old.
Yeah, he's
like, that's
fucked
That's
up.
a hell filing cabinet. Like, that is a filing cabinet of hell.
A filing cabinet.
Yeah. Also in the apartment was a big painting of a skiing scene. Now, this doesn't seem like it should be. You're like, yeah, that's just like...
I'm like, cool.
That's just like
weird.
interesting, I suppose. He likes to ski. Carol Bundy stated to the authorities that she had helped him move some things into the apartment. And one of those things was that large ski painting.
Someone else's.
She helped him hang it up. And when she did, he laughed. And she was like, what are you laughing at? And he was like, oh, see these blood stains? And she was like, holy, I didn't see them before, but she said, I saw them. And she was like, yeah, those belong to Gina Moreno. And a blood typing expert later confirmed that the blood did match Gina's blood type. Obviously, they couldn't do DNA at the time, but blood typing matched.
Right.
Now, the garage in Burbank, where he had taken Cynthia Chandler and Gina Moreno to rape their dead bodies, he rented a space there, like a storage garage. And police were able to search that too, and they found a ton of, like, clearly cleaned dark stains on the floor. One was a clear smear of what appeared to be blood, and later they confirmed that they believed it was blood. They couldn't absolutely confirm it.
Right.
But it was 2.5 feet wide and 8 feet long.
Whoa.
And it was like someone covered in blood had been dragged across the floor. There was a boot print made in blood, and it matched the boots on Doug Clark's feet at the time of his arrest.
Wow.
Yeah. So the deputy district attorney, Robert Jorgensen, at the time called Doug Clark a cowardly butcher of little girls, which is exactly what he is.
Yup.
Clark himself was extremely hostile during the trial and got in trouble for outbursts of rage. He would literally scream at people and call them names, and everybody was like, yeah, you look very stable.
Keep going.
Like, yeah, I don't
If I was the judge, I'd be like, go ahead.
Yeah, they were literally
Go
like,
off.
yeah, you're definitely looking like someone who didn't murder people.
What more do you have to say?
He decided to also pull a Bundy and act as his own defense for a bit.
Stop it.
And he claimed Carol did it all with her boyfriend, Jack Murray. And even though the murder weapon, the gun, was found in his work locker and only had his prints on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds about right. He was also really screwing himself with this, like, blame Carol and Jack thing, too, because he was at the time speaking to a former girlfriend while he was in jail. And he was basically asking her to cover for him.
And you're like, you don't think
Yeah.
anybody's listening? And that's
Like,
always my
it's
favorite
so
when they're
funny.
like on the phone in prison.
Yeah.
And they're like, so I got to tell you something, but like, you can't tell anybody. Like, no one's listening to that.
Like, you're in jail.
Then that like
You're
still
in
happens.
jail. It
And
does.
I'm like,
It happens all the time.
you are in the slammer.
But I'm glad. I'm glad that
Same.
it's like they're
But I'm
so
like,
dumb that they just like let it out.
People
but-
will like hire hitmen from prison
Yeah, like-
and think that no one is
Yeah.
going to hear that telephone
just do the
conversation.
transaction right from prison.
I'd also love to be the person that like gets to listen to those. Well, like not all of them, but like
No.
those specific ones where they're like doing dumb shit
Where
like
you're just
that
like,
and just
ding,
be
ding, ding.
Really, idiot.
I feel like
I'd like knock on your cell and be like, really,
really
for real.
Well, that would be the problem. I would have a problem not like clicking into the conversation and being like,
Are you kidding?
I'm sorry, are you really this stupid?
Are you
I
me?
gotta ask you, are you really this dumb, sir? Like, I would have a lot of problems with it.
Seriously.
But-
You'd have to hear a lot of
Oh,
them.
yeah,
Like,
no.
yuck.
There's a lot of stuff I don't want to hear.
No.
No, this former girlfriend he was speaking to was Bretta Jo Lamphere, and they called her Joey. What he didn't realize was that they had telephone records already pulled for the calls that he had made as Detective Clark to Mindy Cohen and Lori Briggs. Remember, Lori Briggs was the one whose husband had
The business
business card
Yup.
from part one.
Yup.
You know, if you listen to part one, you remember.
You should have.
I hope so, because a lot of this won't make sense.
It
if you didn't.
helps.
But those records for June 16th, 1980, showed that they came from the home of Joey Lamphere. So, but they happened, it was at the time that she was confirmed to be at work.
Huh.
But she said Doug had called her at work that afternoon to tell her, hey, I'm at your apartment. I'm going to do some things.
Yeah.
The records have that call on there as well, him making the call to her
Wow.
work. So it does confirm that he made those, and he intentionally made those calls from his girlfriend's house.
What a- we
bag.
already knew,
But like,
but-
that's so, like, that's a petty move. Is
Yeah,
what
that's-
Then the July 24th, 1980 telephone call to Mindy Cohen was made at 7:11 a.m. from the phone of the apartment that he shared with Carol. So that one was made with Carol's phone, and the other one was made with his other girlfriend's phone. But he even, like, somehow Lamphere still was contacting him,
Yeah.
which is wild.
I can 100% tell you that if like someone I was dating was a murderer and like called
trying to set
other
you up.
people from my house,
Yeah.
snip.
Yeah, that's
snip.
grounds for...
Cut him off, sis.
That's grounds for ghosting, I'd say.
Yeah, ghost that.
But he wrote to her and she responded, and he told her he was trying to get her to go to different sites of the murders to get information to help push it. And
like I have a day job.
which is a very Kenneth Bianchi move.
It is.
And one of the things he told her to do was to go to the place where Marnette Comer was found. And he said so the media had not released that there was just like one specific thing about that scene where you could see the freeway lights from the spot she was found, even though it was a very remote spot.
Okay.
It was just something that they had never mentioned.
Yeah.
But he, in the letters, asked her to go to the place where you can, quote, see the freeway lights from where Comer lie in the ravine for 30 days.
Wow.
So he specifically said where you can see the freeway lights.
And he's like trying to write a poem about it. Like what, dude?
He also wrote to her that he was scared if he acted as his own defense that his voice might be recognizable to Mindy Cohen and Lori Briggs in court. So he's admitting again that he made those phone calls.
And again, you don't think someone's reading this mail before they send it
Yeah.
out? Like, of course they are.
Oh, yeah. And then this is from the court transcript. So apparently he tried to, like, with evidence as well.
Shocking.
It says, other writings indicated that at a court-ordered examination of physical evidence, defendant, that's Doug, deliberately handled certain items to place his fingerprints on them so that police would be unable to prove any pre-existing fingerprints. That defendant had altered his appearance by losing weight, and that he had sent case exhibits to a prisoner in the state of Washington for her titillation and amusement. Who was that prisoner, you ask?
Oh, I wonder.
Who was that prisoner?
Who's that girl?
It's the time you've all been waiting for. It was Veronica Compton, everybody. I told you it would come full circle. We just had to get there. We just had to sludge through.
Yeah.
Now, Veronica was already arrested for trying to keep Kenneth Bianchi out of prison or get him out of prison because, you know, she tried to murder an innocent woman dressed as a pregnant woman to get him out of jail.
Correct.
Oh, and she was holding a vial of his semen.
Yes.
Yeah. Now,
As one does.
Yeah, of course. Now, asked Veronica at the time, and she was pissed. Once she got arrested, she got pissed because Ken dropped her like a hot potato.
Of course he did. What is it? What
because he
use
doesn't
are you
need her
now?
anymore because he's a sociopath. He doesn't care about anybody.
No.
And she said, quote, Ken was the one who really pressed the issue of the manic copycat killer who was in love with him, killing to emulate him. It was Ken. At the cost of my life, my son, my sanity, which he knew damn well was all but dissipated, he let me die alive. I am so sorry for the woman, but I still can't believe it was me tightening the rope. It wasn't me in every way but physically.
It was.
No, it was. It was you. You
It
were
was.
Yep, it was you. That was you, Veronica.
Just wanted
was
to
you.
set a reminder on your iPhone for later. It was you.
Just ask Kim Breed, the woman that you did it to. She will identify you and say, yep, it was you.
Yeah.
You must be mistaken. It was you.
Yeah.
Now, she was at Sybil Brand prison in max security, and Carol Bundy was in a cell near her, waiting trial.
Shit.
Now, according to Veronica, Carol used to whisper details of her crimes to her, and she was like obsessed with her.
Veronica was obsessed with Carol.
No,
or
Carol
vice
was
versa?
obsessed with Veronica and would
Okay.
like whisper the details of his crimes. And then Veronica said about Carol, quote, she was convinced I had been Ken's actual murder partner in the Hillside case. That illusion gave her the freedom to speak through veiled code to me about the joys of her crimes, reliving their perversities and games. She was terrifying. Casually talking of decapitations, dressing up faces, having some dead bodies, Doug's favorite. I would think, I'm crazy, but I'm not that evil. What the hell has happened?
Girl.
Like, I love how everybody's like, I'm evil, but not that evil. Like, I tried to murder someone in cold
must
blood,
just
but like,
be
I'm
the
not that
wildest.
evil. Like, damn. Where you have found yourself in a wild place in life where you are
truly
having to
have.
like
Weigh the evil.
in trying to like pat yourself on the back for not being as evil as Carol Bundy.
She's like, well, I didn't rape
Like,
dead
damn.
bodies, so I'm not that bad. It's like, you still tried to take a life.
Pretty
so,
bad.
Like, yeah, you didn't do that.
That's bad news.
Should
bears.
we give you a cookie with your lunch? Like, what do you think?
Now, at Veronica's trial, she said she didn't try to murder that innocent woman to give Ken an alibi, but she just did it because she's an amazing writer, and writers should always be hands-on in their craft. And she was writing about a murderer.
So are you.
Yeah.
And I really hope that you're not
I am
hands-on
not-
in your craft.
I'm not that hands-on.
Because I've read some of the manuscript, and like sometimes I'm like, what is this doing? But like,
What is this
no,
bitch
she's not.
doing? You can't be that hands-on.
No.
Can't do it. And she said she thought it would just, quote, blow people's minds.
Yeah.
That murder of an innocent mother.
Yeah.
Would just blow people's minds, man.
It would, but like not in the way that you were wanting.
And then she said, and I quote, Veronica is a wild, wild person. She said, quote, I am a very good writer. I am very into myself, very much so. I love myself immensely. I'm very narcissistic. Believe me, I had to have an enormous ego to do what I did. Honey, I believe you. I believe you.
You know who she gives me like Long Island Lolita Amy Fisher vibes.
Oh, you're right.
Doesn't
She kind of does.
Yeah.
Now, when they asked her if she was doing this out of love for Ken, she said she loved him, but then she said, quote, since I am an unknown writer, I embraced an idea for publicity. In that idea, I grasped the most sensationalistic murder case I could because I had just completed a murder play, which I believe is very explosive, very dynamic, and I want it sold.
Girl, you better get a different publicist.
Honey, listen to me. Listen to me right now. All writers want to be published. I get it.
Of course.
I get it. I get it. That's not the way to go about it.
Not that badly.
That's not the way to go about it.
No.
That's not it.
That
I also
that ain't it.
love one that she called it a murder play.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Wow. Yikes.
Insensitive.
Two, the fact that she's like, this murder play that I wrote, it's very explosive, very dynamic. I love that she's giving herself her own like
critique.
like little snippets to put on the back of like the playbill. Like
yes.
very explosive, so dynamic. Like she's
like-
like I know it, you know it,
It
we
says
all
like
know
the
it.
play's name by Veronica Compton, and then on the back it's like Veronica
Dynamic.
Compton. Veronica Compton. Like,
Veronica Compton thinks it's explosive. She thinks it's dynamic.
like, of course she does.
and
She
I love
wrote
at the
it.
end, she's like, I want it sold. It's like, honey, that ship sailed.
Also,
I
you're
don't
not
know
going to
what to tell you.
profit off of it now.
No,
Like,
that's gone. Now, Kim Breed, like I said, who is the survivor of Veronica Compton, she said she was convinced that Veronica was pregnant because, remember, she was wearing a disguise. And she said she's like, I would have fought her harder, but I was worried about hurting her baby. Oh. So she's like, I literally didn't fight her as hard as I would have because I didn't want to hurt an unborn baby.
Right.
Because she was also a mother.
Yeah.
And it's like she's just a human being with empathy and feelings and love
that
for
none
like
of the
another
characters in this would understand.
Now, the same doctor that performed the autopsies on many of the Hillside Strangler victims was the man who testified at Veronica's trial that the marks on Kim Breed were almost identical to the victims of the Hillside Strangler, and he said it was obvious that Ken had showed her exactly how to do it.
Like how?
Because they were able to have visits.
Yeah, but like, isn't somebody watching that?
Yeah, but he can just sit there and tell her.
Damn, that's crazy.
She ended up being sentenced to life in prison.
Yeah.
But she did get out, just so you know.
Oh, she did?
Yeah. So while she's in prison, she starts getting these letters. Now, she claims... And let's remember, we can't believe anybody here.
This is Ronnie we're talking about.
This is Ronnie. Now, she claims that at first these letters came in from a guy named Daniel. And this guy named Daniel said, I'm just some poor asshole on the outside who just thinks you're innocent and knows your true heart. And that like Daniel and Veronica just started falling in love through these letters. And it was just, beautiful. And soon Daniel was like, I have a secret. And she was like, what is it? And he was like, I'm actually Doug Clark of the Sunset Slayers.
Like, this is the time that he decided to get an alias?
Yeah.
This is when?
Who knows? Either way, whether he started it off as Doug Clark or he pretended to be Daniel, which I just don't see
I don't
happening.
think he did. I think she was saying that because she was like, I already fell in love with him.
Well, and I think she uses it later because, as we'll see, she gets kind of like bashed about this during the Hillside Strangler case because they use it as a way to take away her credibility for anything. Because they're like, well, she's already like in a relationship with another serial killer at the moment. So, and she tried to say, oh, I didn't know it was Doug Clark. He said it was Daniel.
Exactly.
I think
I do too.
Because no matter what way it happened at first, she found out it was Doug Clark and she was still all into it.
Right.
And they started like a heavily sadistic relationship through letters, like necrophilia talk, all that.
Oh.
Now, she also...
And she's like, Carol's terrifying.
Well, and if you saw when I read the court transcript part that he sent her things to titillate and amuse her about the case. She convinced him to send her crime scene photos, which I'm not even sure how he was able to do, but it's literally in the court transcripts.
What?
He was able to get her file photos from the case.
How?
I don't know. But a photo album was seized from her cell.
Oh my God.
And in it were photos of Exie Wilson's body and severed head. There was also photos of Doug holding different evidence items from the case, which apparently these were photos taken during like a viewing of these items by the defense team, and they had him hold things up.
Okay.
He sent those to like underwear, the box that Exie's head was in.
I'm also like, why did they let him hold that stuff?
I think it was just part of the evidentiary. There was like a reason for it, but they were in the photo album in her cell.
And she's out of prison.
And she had asked for them, like, for her titillation and amusement, it said in the court transcripts.
But then on the other side, she's like, Carol's so terrifying. She talks about,
you're all terrifying.
It's like you're looking at
every one of you. Every last one of you is terrifying. It was also said that they were engaged at one point.
How?
And she said that they were engaged at one point, but then said no.
What is wrong with you?
She was quoted as saying, I thought I could get Ken jealous if I left him for another mass murderer, a more notorious mass murderer. I cared for Clark, but I was madly in love with Ken.
I think Bailey Sarian says this, get better idols.
Yes. So,
get better idols.
Bailey is correct.
Like, listen to our girl Bailey.
Listen to Bailey Sarian. Just listen to Bailey Sarian no matter what. But definitely listen to her on this.
What?
Now, interesting too. So when she was tested, so obviously she went on the stand too for Angelo Buono's trial because they were trying to get her to say that, the defense put her on the stand so that she could say that her and Ken were trying to set Buono up.
Yes,
so it would be good for the defense team. Now, while she was on the stand, she was a terrible witness. That
Of course
horrible.
she was.
She was like very like, "Wah," like very over the top.
She's a playwright.
Exactly. And she's an actress. So she's a thespian. And she would cry and say Ken wasn't paying attention to her after all they had gone through, completely ignoring the fact that she tried to kill an innocent mother.
Yeah.
She was also obviously really put on they were talking to her about the Doug Clark thing and being like, yeah, like this seems to be like your thing. Like, I don't think
you want to talk about it.
And she was basically brought on to tell the story of how she and Ken were trying to frame Angelo, but it turned into just like totally just demolishing her as a character.
Yeah.
At the same time that she was on the stand, and I didn't know this, and I looked it up and it is true, while she was on the stand defending Ken Bianchi at the Angelo Buono trial, across the hall in the same courthouse, Doug Clark's trial was going on. Isn't that wild?
Shut the actual
They
fuck
were
up.
in the same courthouse.
That's the thing. It's like 7 degrees of Hillside
Cases.
Stranglers. Like, goodbye.
These cases are so connected, and Veronica Compton is like sitting right in the middle.
Ew.
It's so wild.
That is.
Now, Veronica actually escaped from prison at one point.
Get out of
She
here.
cut through the wire fence with another inmate.
What?
And she was caught like immediately and brought back. In the early 90s, she married James Wallace while in prison. He was a retired political science professor at Eastern Washington University. He was also married when they began corresponding, and she got him to leave his wife for her.
Okay.
Yep. They got conjugal visits at one point, and she had a daughter with him. Oh. She was released on parole at one point, but then put right back in prison because social workers and a cop showed up to check on the daughter. And they found out that she had painted sadistic and pornographic murals on the walls in their home. She was also still writing about her fascination and love of necrophilia. And her report by parole chairwoman upon re-entering prison said, quote, "Her psychological history is quite disturbing and indicates that she has learned how to manipulate more skillfully, not that she has become more stable or less a danger to be at large." And then it said, "I noted that there was information in the file that she had said prior to her release and repeatedly told corrections staff that she married Dr. Wallace and had a child simply to get out of prison and go to California, and that she had no intention of staying with either." Miss Compton did not deny these remarks.
That's really sad.
Yeah. She was released in 2003, and she released an album called Home in 2013.
Shut up.
That's right.
What kind of music? Like, what genre?
I didn't listen to it. I was going to, but I didn't know if I wanted to be in that kind of headspace.
Well,
on
you
my
also
way
don't
home
want to
from
give her
work.
the streams.
Well, that's how I was like,
I just want to know what the
don't-
genre is.
I don't even know I'm sure it's something like really out there.
Wow. And then, so, like, how did she get out of jail?
She just was
Or
able
prison.
to be eligible for parole.
Why?
I really don't know.
And then didn't Carol Bundy die in 2003?
Was it 2003? I think it was.
That's crazy. Oh my God.
but-
The album cover for Home is like a woman's nether regions with a knife, question mark? Like, what even is that?
Makes sense.
And like a snake.
Yeah, all of that makes sense. I would expect nothing less.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I would expect nothing less of Veronica Compton.
The first song is called Head Song.
Yeah,
What the
she's living.
She has
She's really
one called
living.
Steven. I wonder who Steven is.
Steven.
Land of Dreams. Strung Out. I'm Not Open. Isn't it funny? It's not.
None of it is
It's
funny. I
not.
can tell you
Wow.
that much.
Wow.
The answer to that is no.
I gotta go.
But now that we have talked about Veronica Compton, because I just had to break in there with her little tale.
yeah.
5 days after the jury began deliberations in Doug Clark's trial, on January 28th, 1983, he was found guilty, by the way, of all 6 counts of murder and the count of attempted murder on Charlene.
Good.
A psychologist did diagnose Doug with antisocial personality disorder and also said he had disorder that included paraphilia, also fetishism and pedophilia and more. Paraphilias are kind of like controversial because it can like bring into the picture, people judging what is and isn't normal.
Yeah.
So some people, there's certain things, but there's certain things that are involved with it that are very clearly not.
Right, like pedophilia. Fetishism.
Sorry, that's hard to say.
It is.
When it's not living objects.
Yeah.
Like necrophilia.
Yeah.
There's also like sadism when it's like on an unwilling participant. There's also something called frauderism, which I didn't know what this was. And then when I looked it up, it's basically the urge and act of rubbing yourself against an unconsenting person in a public setting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes you wonder how many times that's happened to you.
I know
because,
that
like, somebody
you
bumps
didn't think
into
it
you.
was an accident, and it's like, ugh,
Yeah, I don't like that.
But he did have all that, obviously, because we all knew that's part of his pathology. But he was declared sane and completely in control and aware of the murders, though.
Mm-hmm.
So March 16th, 1983, he was sentenced to 5 death sentences. He was sent to San Quentin, and he is still there today.
I saw that.
Yep. While on death row, he also married a woman named Kelly, who proclaims his innocence.
Kelly, you're wrong.
You're wrong, Kelly. But Carol was supposed to originally have a trial and was going to go into it pleading insanity. But then she changed her mind right before it, and she said, you know what? I had a lot of fun murdering, so I'm not going to... And she decided to take that plea deal and spare herself the death penalty, at least.
Carol's like the queen of changing her mind.
She sure is.
Like, she's like, oh, never mind.
Just kidding.
I have to tell... Oh, never mind.
Nah.
I told you.
Yeah.
No.
And there's a lot of, like... with Carol, there's a lot of things that you just look at and you're like, man, you were created. Because,
oh my gosh, of
like,
course.
even during her interrogation, one of the detectives said that, like, halfway through talking about these brutal murders and everything, she was like, you know what? Like, I'm really turned on by you. Are you turned on by me?
No.
And it's like, that's directly from her father.
Of course.
Like,
that's
doing,
really
like,
sad.
raping her at a young age. Like, teaching her that that's all that there is. It's things like that you're just like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, damn. But...
Do better, society.
Yeah. But on May 31st, 1983, she received several consecutive prison sentences of 25 years to life for the murder of Jane Doe 28 and the murder of Jack Murray. Okay. So Jane Doe 28 is Kathy, because she admitted that she was there and that she handed the gun to him. She was put into the California Institute for Women at Frontera, and she and Doug maintained contact through letters for a while.
She actually allowed that.
She tried to have him, like, freed, because she tried to be like, you can just say I did it, or you can do all this. Or she was still trying to, like...
Wow, that's sad.
Yeah, please him. But obviously, that didn't work because of all the murder. She was going to be eligible for parole as of 2012, but she died of heart failure and complications related to diabetes December 9th, 2003, at 61 years old.
Yeah.
And I did read, there was, like... because I think we were talking about it on, like, a recent Crime Countdown episode, that, like, so many of these terrible serial killers are in San Quentin.
We were, yeah. I don't think it's been released yet. But
no, but it's like a crazy thing. Like,
there was an episode that we recorded, and I would say at least like 6 out of 10 were in San Quentin.
It's wild.
And it was California's like most gnarly serial killers.
Yeah, and it's like that place must be the darkest energy.
Well, and all of them are on death row too.
Yeah.
I think I said in the episode, I was like, I bet you can like feel like the energy.
Yeah, because you think like it must be thick with just evil.
Oh yeah.
Like, I can't even imagine working
I mean,
there.
I believe like so much in energy and energy work and stuff like that. Like, your energy comes out of your body.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine having to be like a guard or somebody that worked there walking down that hallway.
It just must feel so heavy.
You need to sage yourself every day.
But he's really the only... I mean, Jack is gone. Carol's gone. Doug is the only one hanging out. And obviously
and
Veronica. Which I don't think Veronica's going to be much help, but...
I don't think
But I would love for Doug to finally admit something.
He
Doesn't
won't,
look like
He's
he
an
will,
asshole.
though. No. You can tell by his eyes.
Yeah,
he's just not going to.
Scary fucking
His eyes are.
Let me go look at him again.
And
like,
one of the, I think it was Charlene who said she remembered him because of those eyes, like those cold, just dead eyes that he has.
Oh yeah.
But also, I'm going to put the Doe Network, Jane Doe's, the links to them in the show notes, just so you can take a look in case you never know. maybe someone knows something or knows who these people are. I'll put them right in the show notes. And in case you don't know what the show notes are, because sometimes I've seen people be like, what the hell are show notes? And I didn't know what they were before I listened to podcasts.
Yeah, no, me either.
It's just the description. Wherever you're listening to the podcast, the description of this episode, well, that's the show notes.
It will usually say, like, you can see like a little tidbit of it, and then it will say like, see more.
Yeah, so if you want to see all that stuff, it's always right there.
Yeah.
But that is the case of the Sunset Strip Slayers and Veronica Compton.
Wow.
And I'm glad to be out of there. Whew, I'm ready
hope
for
you are too.
I'm doing like a spooky episode next or something.
Go ahead.
Hillside Stranglers followed by this is like, whoo, boy.
It's a lot, man.
It's spooky season. I'm going to do a spooky episode.
Spooky, scary skeletons. I don't think I can sing the rest. All right, guys. Well, we hope you keep listening.
And we hope you
keep
it
weird. But it's weird that you're Veronica Compton. Thanks. Bye. Thanks. Bye.
If you like Morbid, you can listen early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.